Madhava Kunjabi Hari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Vishwam Subharaj Stood at the Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishwam Subharaj Stood at the Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada Ki Go Premanande Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, Chapter 3, Pure Devotional Service, Text 11. Etavaneva yajatam Eha nishreya sodaya Bhagavat yachalo bhavo Yad bhagavata sangata Etavaneva yajatam Eha nishreya yasodaya Bhagavat yachalo bhavo Yad bhagavata sangataha Etavaneva yajatam Iha Nishre Yashodaya Bhagavat Yachalo Bhavo Yad Bhagavata Sangata Eva, certainly, Yajatam, while worshiping. Iha, in this life, Nishreyasya, the highest benediction. Udaya, development. Bhagavati, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Achala, unflinching. Bhava, spontaneous attraction. Yat, which. Bhagavata, the pure devotee of the Lord. Sangata, association. Translation. All the different kinds of worshippers of multi-demigods can attain the highest perfectional benediction, which is spontaneous attraction, unflinchingly fixed upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by the association of the pure devotee of the Lord. Purport. It's a bit of a long purport, we'll read most of it. All living entities in different statuses of life within the material creation, beginning from the first demigod, Brahma, down to the small ant, are conditioned under the law of material nature, or the external energy of the Supreme Lord. The living entity in his pure state is conscious of the fact that he is part and parcel of the Lord. But when he is thrown into the material world on account of his desire to lord it over material energy, he becomes conditioned by the three modes of material nature and thus struggles for existence for the highest benefit. This struggle for existence is something like following the will-o'-the-wisp under the spell of material enjoyment. All plans for material enjoyment, either by worship of different demigods, as described in the previous verses of this chapter, or by modernized advancement of scientific knowledge without the help of God or demigod, are illusory only. For despite all such plans for happiness, the conditioned living being within the compass of material creation can never solve the problems of life, namely birth, death, old age, and disease. The history of the universe is full of such plan makers, and many kings and emperors come and go, leaving a plan-making story only. But the prime problems of life remain unsolved, despite all endeavors by such plan makers. Actual human life is meant for making a solution to the problems of life. One can never solve such problems by satisfying the different demigods, by different modes of worship, or by so-called scientific advancement in knowledge without the help of God or the demigods. Apart from the gross materialists who care very little either for God or for the demigods, the Vedas recommend worship of different demigods for different benefits. And so the demigods are neither false nor imaginary. The demigods are as factual as we are, but they are much more powerful due to their being engaged in the direct service of the Lord, in managing different departments in the universal government. The Bhagavad Gita affirms this, and the different planets of the demigods are mentioned there, including the one of the supreme demigod, Lord Brahma. The gross materialists do not believe in the existence of God or the demigods, nor do they believe that different planets are dominated by different demigods. They are creating a great commotion about reaching the closest celestial body, Chandraloka, or the moon, but even after much mechanical research, they have only very scanty information of this moon. And in spite of much false advertisement for selling land on the moon, The puffed up scientists or gross materialists cannot live there, and what to speak of reaching the other planets, which they are unable even to count. Om Agana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. As we were briefly mentioning yesterday, this chapter, Pure Devotional Service, begins with a presentation of worshiping the Devatas. In other words, partially authorized materialism. We spoke briefly yesterday about how it's a compliment to call someone today a materialist, because the title, the appellation, implies that you know how to live material life in such a way that, at least in this lifetime, you can have some mirage of happiness. But as we know, that's certainly not the case. Human beings today, in their quest for happiness, are destroying themselves, destroying their habitat, destroying each other. So to call someone, say, a materialist is overblown honor. This chapter begins with describing real materialists, authorized materialists, partially authorized, in that if you want popularity, if you want an attractive partner, if you want health, if you want this, if you want that, there's a demigod and a puja for that. But why do we say this is partially authorized materialism? Because in the greater scheme of things, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, bribing the demigods is avidipurva. It is irregular. It is not the proper process. Even though from a limited point of view, if you want material benefit, and you're smart, you do worship the demigods. But in the overall point of view, and Bhagavatam is about the overall point of view, you're missing the point of watering the tree at the root. You know the old example Srila Prabhupada would give, which is still effective today. Where does the food go when you want to nourish your body? It has to go to the authorized place, your mouth. You don't stick the food in your ear, up your nose. There's a place for the food to go so the whole body is nourished. Similarly, this chapter is going to point out pure devotional service as the best process for benefiting all living entities. We get information about the chief executives of other planets. Modern so-called materialists are in no shape or position to affirm or deny. When your knowledge is limited and imperfect, what can you say? Best to keep the mouth shut. If we want to make genuine progress as individuals and as a society, we must have access to authorized knowledge. Otherwise, we're just operating in the darkness and rejoicing over a few discoveries amidst the darkness. Our bhakti process rests on authorized knowledge, coming from authoritative sources. Otherwise, what's the use? Everyone has their own opinion about this or that. Everyone has some partial knowledge, some distorted knowledge, some corrupted knowledge, which seems to provide a little benefit amidst many side effects and corollary problems. It's truly amazing how much we don't know from our material point of view. Just like this purport mentions the moon. I was just reading yesterday about how oceanographers, those who study the ocean, point out that there is twice as much water on this planet than there is Earth, yet scientists know less about the depths of the ocean than they propose to know about the moon. Twice as much water on this planet as Earth, as land. And so much attention's being given. Let us see what the moon planet is like. But whatever scant knowledge there is about the moon, scientists know less about the oceans, which are everywhere. Or look at things another way. Consider your life from the material point of view. The only way you can get around this kind of consideration, which is very terrifying, is if you just plunge into hedonistic sensuality or intoxication. But look at your life from the material point of view. Before your birth, there was this expanse of infinity which is totally unknown to you. And after your death, there'll be an expanse of infinity which is totally unknown to you. So amidst those two inestimable expanses of the unknown, there's this tiny spot of life known as you. So when you think about it as a materialist, unless you're intoxicated or absorbed in hedonistic activities, this is terrifying. Why am I here and not there? Why was I born in this place and not that place? Why am I at this moment of history and not another moment of history? I have seen so-called venerable, respectable, materialistic intellectuals say, what's the point in caring about this life? It's just a speck in infinity. Before birth, you were nothing. After death, you'll be nothing. So why struggle so much to figure it all out? You're just a speck in an ocean of meaninglessness. That's the brightest conclusion. The intelligent person, truly intelligent person, recognizes the struggle for existence, as we hear in the purport. But when he is thrown into the material world, on account of his desire to lord it over material energy, he becomes conditioned by the three modes of material nature and thus struggles for existence for the highest benefit. So you can feel yourself doing that. In non-Krishna conscious thinking, we're struggling to get the highest benefit in life. I want to be happy most of the time. I want good things to come to me. I want good experiences. I want nice things. I want to love and be loved. This is struggling for the highest benefit. Psychologists point out that not only, of course, we know that your body changes, and anyone with common sense can see that the body is changing. What you commonly call growth of the body simply means change of the body. But psychologists point out, not only does your body change, but your conceptions of happiness change as the body changes. So, if you're under 30, how many of you here are under 30? Okay. Of course, you're not materialists, so this doesn't apply to you. But without bhakti, this is what your predominant conception would be. I want awesome experiences. Awesome is the Maha Mantra. I want unique events, peak moments, things I can tell my friends about. Yeah, I went to Thailand, it was awesome. I went to this club, it was amazing. I met this most awesome person. You want these singular events that just stand out in your current perception, and then in your memory, and of course, things you can tell your friends about on social media. But that conception of happiness is not always going to be throughout your life. Because as you age, your conceptions of material happiness change along with the body. So when you're up above 60, no longer are you on the quest for the awesome singularity, the unique moment, the magic moment that you can savor years later. The whole game changes. When you're over 60, are you ready to hear what happens then? Anyone here over 60 besides Mukunda Maharaj and myself? Okay, I would have never known. When you're over 60, you try to become content with the ordinary things in life. Oh, it sounds tragic to you young guys, doesn't it? Oh my God. Everyone's looking at me like, with a horrified look on their face. Oh no. The ordinary things in life. Taking the grandchildren to the playground and watching them on the swings and getting your pleasure in that way. That's all. It's a good day. Good day, mate. Nice weather, huh? That's it. This is the struggle for existence. It changes its flavor, but still the struggle remains. You're struggling for awesome moments, and then you're struggling just to relish the ordinary things. You'd be surprised how hard it is for persons to grasp that they're struggling. This chapter in the beginning is presenting the struggle in terms of Devata worship. You can struggle in that way. There's an advantage to that, even though it's, from the overall point of view, it's irregular and not completely authorized. The advantage is at least you're following the Vedic version. But, as this purport is pointing out, and also the verse is saying, unless as a demigod worshiper you get the association of a pure devotee of the Lord, you're not going to be able to make it through the maze of demigod worship, material benefits. You'll be lost. But at least because you are following some Vedic injunctions, you accept some authority, some Vedic authority, there's some hope for you. Nevertheless, demigod worship in of itself, as this purport will tell us, in of itself, Devata puja will not bring you to attraction for Krishna. But if you happen to run into a pure devotee of the Lord, and because you accept the Vedic version, then you can begin to make real progress. And that real progress is described in this verse: spontaneous attraction, unflinchingly fixed upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We get in the beginning of the purport a little information about the living entity in his pure state is conscious of the fact that he is part and parcel of the Lord. But when he is thrown into the material world on account of his desire to lord over material energy, he becomes conditioned. So when you read this, you should get into it. Feel yourself thrown into the material world. You start to grasp the reality. Prabhupada's vocabulary is not huge. That's why so many devotees, I know so many God brothers who learned English just by reading Prabhupada's books, because he's got a limited set of words, yet he expresses his points so lucidly and eloquently. So, thrown into the material world. Just think about your birth. You want your birthday celebrated. Your kids want their birthday celebrated. But what is the whole birth scene like? Someone's thrown into your family. It's like there is your family gathered in the living room of your house, and then it's time for a child to be born. A newborn infant comes flying through the window, landing onto the living room floor. This is the reality of material existence. But we're so foolish, we glorify that. Oh, how nice. Thrown means we're overpowered. So why is it that we're overpowered? We have to accept the fact that we are so tiny. And that means looking away from Krishna. When we look away from Krishna, we're immediately captured by the illusory energy because we're too tiny. I notice it's very difficult for human beings to grasp how tiny and insignificant they are. Appreciating that, you can understand how we've been overrun by the material energy. We looked away from Krishna and then we were ambushed. Why do we look away from Krishna? It's a very difficult question to understand because it involves something beyond time and space, and our intellect is conditioned to thinking about things through the medium of time and space. That's our conditioning. But consider this example that the Shastra gives. A little child is crying for the moon. Telling his mother, I want the moon, which is constitutionally impossible, right? How can a little 5-year-old child have the moon? But the child is throwing what I hear parents call a tanty. The child's throwing a tantrum. I want. So what can be done? The mother has to figure out some way to pacify the child. Often it's with something, I think you call them dummies here. In the USA they call them pacifiers. The thing you stick into the baby's mouth to shut the baby up. And the baby thinks, oh, this is great. Yes? You used to do that? With a pacifier in the mouth? A dummy? No, you didn't fall for it, huh? So, you have to figure out something out of love. This kid's going to have a nervous breakdown unless he gets something resembling what he wants. So the kid gets a dummy or a pacifier. So that's what material existence is all about. We're demanding the moon. And so the example given is that the clever mother has a mirror in her hand, and she catches in the mirror a reflection of the moon and then hands that mirror to the child. The child is happy. So this is our status in material existence. We're struggling with a reflected moon. We were throwing a tantrum. We turned our vision away from Krishna, and then we're overrun by the illusory energy. But we think we're in a place that we can be happy. Meanwhile, we're struggling. The ignorance becomes so intense that if we think about it, we become terrified. What was I before birth? What was I? I won't be anything after death. What's the use in this struggle? What's the point? Yet I'm struggling, yet I continue on. That's the amazing thing. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mamaivam sho jiva loke, jiva bhuta sanatana. You living entities are eternally my fragmented parts. In normal consciousness, you would see that. But forgetting me, you're struggling. Prakriti sthani karshati. You're struggling in the oppressive atmosphere of material nature. And what are you struggling with? The 6 senses. including the mind. Just to see that we're struggling sometimes takes some deliberation. But the fact is, we can't handle the temporariness of material happiness. We're always trying to make a solution to that. I'll change this, I'll change that, I'll change partners, I'll change locations, I'll keep changing. Somehow or other, you might stumble upon happiness that is a little more lasting. It's all temporary, but it's our job as strugglers to increase the duration of the temporary happiness, right? If you can increase the duration of the temporary happiness, oh, how glorious that is. When I'm speaking at universities, I give it some of the curriculum from a course at Yale University on happiness. For those who don't know, Yale University is in the USA. It's like Harvard, Yale, Oxford, Cambridge. So super elitist. And so the university staff did a survey and found that although this is the Brahmaloka of educational institutions, almost half the student body during their time at that place made appointments for mental counseling because they were stressed out to the max and overrun with anxiety. Almost half the student body. So the university decided we're going to do something about this. We turned to the Mahajans, the Acharyas of today. That's the psychology department. And they're going to make a course on happiness. Because no doubt we have maybe out of an enrollment of 4,000 students, we've got probably 100 who could use some happiness education. So they advertised the course. And they were shocked. Hundreds upon hundreds of students were signing up. Finally, the course, they had to move it from a classroom to a lecture hall to a concert hall because 1/4 of the student body had signed up for this one course. And so in this course, they're going to teach you how to defeat, and they were boasting. I heard the professors boast. We're going to teach you how to defeat the hedonic adaptation curve. Does anyone here know what a hedonic adaptation curve is? Hedonic as in hedonism. Materialists understand that every material experience starts off at a peak and then gradually the curve crashes. Because chewing the true, as Prahlad Maharaj said at 5 years old, Puna Puna Jarvana Jarvananam. What is new becomes stale. What is exciting becomes boring. Just like a carbonated beverage that loses its fizz. It's just a matter of time. So the way that you're supposed to make your life successful is to prolong your stay for a few moments longer at the top of the curve. And if you can prolong that stay for a few minutes longer before you plunge, you're successful. How does that sound? And how do you prolong your stay on top of the curve before you plunge? They teach you a mystical art known as savoring. Whenever you have, let's say someone gives you some pizza prasad. Of course, you should be thinking, this is Krishna's mercy. I'm honoring this prasad seva I'm serving. But put on your hedonist hat, and there you've got the pizza in your hand, made from cheese, from milk, from the cows here at New Govardhana. And so you sink your teeth into the pizza, you move your tongue around it. Now, what are you supposed to do if you're really an intelligent materialist? You just focus on the moment. Oh, how does this taste? You fix that moment in your mind. And the last thing you do, and these professors, they'll instruct you, the last thing you do, in fact, never do it, is think this is going to end. No, don't do that. Just get into the moment. Okay, you can't just eat pizza forever. You're going to have to stop. So then, you need to act in such a way that you'll preserve the memory. How do you do that? First of all, you jump with joy, a physical expression of, wow, awesome. Get into it physically. That's step number one. Step number two is you've got to tell your friends about it, because that is all part of the savoring process. Do you know what I just did? It was awesome. Oh, it tasted so good. That sangha, that sharing of the experience helps to fix it in your mind so that later, 20 years later, you can think back on it. And then your life is purposeful and valuable. That's the best they can do. I can go on with more details of the savoring process. But you get the point. You're battling against time, because time destroys the freshness, the so-called freshness of material experience. So this is a struggle. Why don't they tell the students, you're struggling? No, we're going to teach you techniques and you're going to defeat the hedonic adaptation curve. They actually say that. You're going to defeat it. Where's the defeat? It's like you go up in the air in a hot air balloon, and instead of spending a half hour in the air, you spend 40 minutes in the air. Oh, we've defeated the whole... This is madness. But at least what you're getting in the beginning of this chapter is partially authorized madness, demigod worship. Then you have some chance of going to a higher level because you do accept the Vedas as authority, although you've misunderstood. You haven't executed the conclusion of the Vedas. So it's so interesting that in this verse about Devata worship comes up the topic spontaneous attraction, unflinchingly fixed upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam. Sanatana Goswami points out that every syllable in Srimad Bhagavatam is saturated with Krishna prema. So we want to get to the state of consciousness where we can actually experience that. Sometimes it's a mystery. The Bhagavatam is talking about dynasties, it's talking about this, that, the other. So how it is that every syllable is saturated with unflinching attachment for Krishna, that takes realization to see. But it's there. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told us Bhagavatam is one of our main pillars. Hearing Bhagavatam in the association of devotees. Therefore, the instruction for us is, before you are liberated, read Srimad Bhagavatam, and after you are liberated, go on reading Srimad Bhagavatam. So that covers everyone here. All right, any questions? Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Just wondering, what does the scientific report say about people between 30 and 60, how they try to look at happiness?
Well, you can go into more detail. Of course, there's a midlife crisis. Let's say a man, he reaches 45, 48, and he knows that, wait a minute now. If he's a materialist, he knows old age is right around the corner. I've got to, did I get my fair share of material enjoyment? And so you see many adults these days in the age of Kali, they change their whole family scene, they change their partners because maybe I missed out. And it goes for the ladies also. Ladies, when they reach 45, 48, wait a minute. This is during more traditional times. I've given my whole life to children and my husband. What about me? So that still happens these days, the midlife crunch time. Because time is harassing you. Time is shaking you. Adhikeshwara, you're heading into old age. Did you get all that you're supposed to get? There's still time. There's a few years, a window of a few years left. You've got to let the good times roll. You understand that idiomatic expression in English? Because English is not your first language. Like I was telling him at the Krishna village, I was reciting words from a song. Hey everybody, let's have some fun. You only live once, and when you're dead, you're done. So let the good times roll. So that hits you when you're in your late 40s. Like, I'm going to be an old man. Oh my God. And I still haven't found peak material happiness. So Maya starts harassing you, shaking you. Come on, come on. And the ladies, they can think, did I really get all the emotional fulfillment that I should be getting? Maybe I should do something for me finally. I've been living the traditional family life, husband, children. Okay, the kids are growing up. They're doing their thing. I'll do my thing too. Just you wait. You laugh now. Of course, if you chant Hare Krishna all your life, you'll also be laughing then too. Otherwise, it's a struggle. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you for the class. Yesterday you were mentioning about that bhakti is for everyone, whatever stage we're on, and there's still opportunity to carry on in the next life. And then today you mentioned about partially authorized materialists, but we see as us as aspiring devotees, we also kind of could be practicing bhakti through partially. We can see that it's authorized, but then we're doing what we want to do for Krishna, sometimes not following the authority because we want to engage according to our psychophysical nature. So how do we properly follow the authorized process and not lead our false ego?
What do you mean by not following the authorities because we want to follow our psychophysical nature? That one went over my head.
Sometimes we see devotees, they come and they want to do devotional service according to what they want to do, but not really doing what is required.
Well, there are always going to be those types, and we're grateful for them. At least they want to serve Krishna. As we heard yesterday, akamo, sarvakama, moksha kama, udadadi. Whether you're full of material desires or free of material desires, engage in devotional service. But obviously, you need some persons in your community who will do the needful. Otherwise, if you have just a group of persons who want to serve Krishna only the way they want to serve, you'll have some managemental difficulties. So you do need a core of persons who, as you say, will do the necessary. I remember back in the early days, let's see, 1972, 73, ISKCON in New York, when every week 20 young persons were joining the temple, and they all came with their backpacks, and what else were they carrying? A guitar. Because each one of them was thinking, I was on the verge of being a world success playing my music. My lyrics are so world-changing. I gave that up to do it for Krishna. Now I'm here at the temple. I'm ready to launch my Krishna music career. So you can't have a temple full of only those kind of persons. It was like that then. Each one, I remember I would talk to them, and each one would tell me, I'm on the verge of stardom. The world's going to love my music. But now I recognize playing music for Krishna is the only way to go. I'm not going to play any more material music. So someone had to preach to them and convince them that we have many services here that need to be done. And you're probably not, by the way, you're probably not the next George Harrison, because they were all thinking, George Harrison, my sweet Lord, that's me, I'll be the next one. Through preaching and mentoring, you change a person's mind. That let's see what's best for Krishna. But there are always going to be persons who are attached to serving Krishna a certain way. And we should facilitate that. We're happy they want to serve Krishna. At the same time, we have to bring to a higher platform devotees so that they can see that they're trying to please Krishna. They're trying to please Krishna's representative. So both have to go on. It's like sometimes it's like a one-room schoolhouse, you know? You used to teach school, right? Well, how many grades did you have in your classroom?
I had between age 4 to 6. I had different schools from 5 to 7.
When I was a little boy, I went to Lutheran school, and they had 3 grades in each classroom. And so the teacher had to cater to all the levels. So similarly, often in ISKCON, it's like that. Just like the class I'm giving, I have to cover points to try and hone in on everyone's level. Because some are new bhaktas, some are very senior devotees like Krishna Rupa Devi Dasi. Some are staunchos and some are... So you have to say something for everyone. It's not easy, actually. Otherwise, I'd give a whole class on spontaneous attraction, unflinchingly fixed. Let's talk about bhava and rati and prema. Meanwhile, here we all are in the pit, struggling, trying to control our senses and wake up in the morning. Engaged in Krishna's service. So there will be persons who are attached to serving in a particular way. And sure, facilitate them. But there should be others who have a higher vision. Therefore we have our head pujari couple. Anything else? Prabhu, you have any comments? So nice to see you.
There seems to be such a different view of the universe between the materialists and the enlightened.
Say that again, please.
Between how the materialists see the universe and how the Bhagavatam sees the universe. Is there some sort of middle ground where we can have some sort of common understanding?
Jiva Goswami explains in Tattva Sandarbha that the information your senses give you is useful to a certain point. So just like to get from here to your house, you have to use your senses. There's a good chance that material sense perception is wrong, but still you use it as far as it takes you. While understanding, Jiva Goswami says, that authorized knowledge, authentic knowledge, comes through shabda, sound vibration. So the 5th canto describes the universe, and Shukadeva Goswami is in ecstasy thinking about Krishna as the cause of all causes, the ultimate source. the information he gives doesn't coincide with what our senses tell us. So it leaves us kind of admitting this is over my head. Maybe someone will figure out, as you say, how to explain it all. Even Prabhupada himself said the information is very, very difficult to grasp and present. There has to be some humility, and that's a very difficult thing for people, for conditioned souls, not simply people today. Just like I was explaining about the oceanographers. They're basically telling you, be humble. We know less about the ocean. Scientists know less about the ocean than they do about the moon, and the ocean's right there. And the ocean's twice the amount of land on this planet. So there always has to be that humility. But we are not humble, and therefore it's hard for us to accept that there's something beyond our scope. What we can easily understand, or more readily understand from the 5th canto, is that everything is related to Krishna. And that's why Shukadeva Goswami is in ecstasy, even talking about the planetary system. He sees it all in relation to Krishna. So we have our devotee scholars, and they're trying to sort it all out as per Prabhupada's instruction. He said he wanted it sorted out, but it's taking quite some time because it's quite unfathomable. So we'll just have to be patient, and meanwhile be happy that we get to hear Shukadeva Goswami's ecstatic presentation, because he's saturated with love of Krishna even when he talks about the universe. That's the most important thing for us to grasp. But yes, that's why we're to understand this cosmological presentation. They're making a planetarium in Mayapur. They're trying to agree, sort things out. It's a very complicated and deep subject matter. So that's the best I can tell you. Last question, anything? Let's see if we'll go this side, and then we'll get to you. Equal rights. You're a married man, you should know that by now. Okay, give it to Saratanath Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. How do we, when we realize what a great opportunity we have in this human form of life with taking advantage of teachers and community, how do we overcome pettiness in utilizing our time? How do we...
Give me an example of pettiness in utilizing our time.
Just like Facebook and watching funny videos and things like that.
How can life exist without Facebook? Oh my God. Have any of you ever tried existing without Facebook? It's impossible. It is the Shastra for our times. You have to see how the mass weapons of distraction are ruining your life, your spiritual life. Each individual devotee needs to see, I have a certain amount of time, what am I doing with my time? The social media and YouTube are set up to keep you addicted. They're purposely designed that way, you know that, right? Just like processed food is purposely designed by scientists to addict you. They study the brain, they study the tongue, and they study the neurochemicals and this and that, and we can see that if we put such and such chemical in the food, someone will always be anticipating tasting this food. We've got to make it sugary, we've got to make it crunchy. They actually plan how to addict you. And similarly, the social media is the same. So you have to decide, do you want to be in the grip of this? Or do you want to be in Krishna's grip? A good way to go about it is detox. Set a time limit every day, or even say for the next 2 weeks, like for Kartik, the month of Kartik, no social media. Impossible, right? Everything was fine before social media happened, right? We existed in the 70s, 80s, 90s without Facebook, without YouTube. We were right, Krishna Rupa? We were alive. So when things get to a point where your spiritual life is affected, then you know you've got a problem. Just like with any addiction. So it all depends on what you want from your life. You have to decide that. No one can live your life for you. Okay? All right. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.